Mi queridísimo Prezi,
¿Qué onda?
¿cómo andas, my friend?
Déjame, cierro esta ventanita porque...
Sí, nada más que luego ahí se ve a ver si se ve mejor, güey. Ahí estamos.
Ahí se ve mejor.
Sí, tú te ves muy bien, güey. Yo soy el que estoy como con contraste, güey. Pero es que están mis hijos ahí en el estudio y hoy me dieron una patada. ¿Cómo andas?
Aquí déjame agregar a Miguel y a Enrique. Nomás déjale, le hablo a Olivia a ver si se quiere conectar ya al alcalde.
¿Qué onda, Enrique? Gusto saludarte nuevamente.
Hola Fernando, hola Miguel.
Hola, ¿cómo están todos? Gusto saludarlos.
Buen día, Miguelón.
Fernando, ¿cómo están?
Vamos, empezando la semana.
Oigan,
Yo
bueno,
que
la
estoy muy bien.
dinámica, le decía aquí a Enrique que la dinámica otra vez, si quieren yo abro, ya que lo conozco muy bien, y luego le damos una bienvenida a los socios de cada uno. Les cedo la palabra a cada uno de ustedes. Un minutito, la pasamos a él y luego ya abrimos a preguntas. Voy a meter a Enrique Perrete en el chat para coordinar las preguntas, ¿no?
Excelente, excelente.
Dale.
¿Cómo has estado, Enrique?
Bien, Miguel. Aquí vamos.
Qué bueno,
Arrancando.
qué bueno, me da gusto. Me da mucho gusto. Oye, Enrique, tú me dijiste que eres de Piedras Negras, ¿verdad?
Sí, de piedras.
Fíjate que yo tengo un tío que vive en Piedras Negras, se casó con una persona de allá.
Ujú.
Él es de aquí de Chihuahua, se llama Luis Roana. Huicho
Claro,
Roana.
claro, ¿cómo
¿Lo
no?
conoces?
Sí,
Claro.
su hijo es de mis mejores amigos.
Ajá, él tiene un hijo que es cuate, ¿no? De hecho, creo que
Tiene 4 hijos. El más grande, que es mi amigo Luis, él vive en
Luis.
Monterrey.
Ajá.
Y luego tiene a Erika y a
Ajá.
Shaker se llama, Shaker.
Chaquer, claro.
Ellos dos son gemelos. Y luego tiene a
Exacto,
otra
Chaquer,
que se llama Leti.
Leti, como su mamá, ¿no?
Sí, como la mamá.
Creo que
Hello, Olivia.
Chaquer se llamaba el abuelo de él.
Sí, sí.
El abuelo de tu amigo se llamaba Chaquer. Chaquer era hermano de mi abuela, güey.
Ah, mira,
O sea, mi mamá y Huicho son primos
son
hermanos.
primos hermanos, sí.
Una
No,
botana ese güey.
súper queridos. Luis y yo vivimos juntos, en Monterrey un par de años. Luego él se fue a estudiar a Monterrey.
Sí.
No, pero de mis
Mira,
brothers.
Así que mándale un mensajito a los
qué
medios
buena onda, güey.
que ya se conecten.
Va.
¿Cómo?
No, que les digo que mande un mensajito ahí a los medios que se conecten.
Ah, ok.
Aquí la voy a mandar a una...
Oye, pues qué bueno saber, Enrique. No, pues nosotros los queremos mucho, mano, a todos ellos. Son
Sí,
gente muy cercana a nosotros.
me acuerdo que Luis pues se iba todas las navidades para allá.
Ándale, sí.
Y
Las navidades las pasábamos todos en Ojinaga, güey, en Ojinaga, Chihuahua. De ahí era nuestro bisabuelo. Nuestro bisabuelo era libanés,
sí.
pero no sé, por obra del destino terminó estableciéndose en Ojinaga, Chihuahua, en medio de la nada. Y ahí, pues, es toda la bola de roanas, de ahí venimos, ¿no? Y todos la pasábamos juntos en Ojinaga, güey. Pero te estoy hablando que éramos como 300, güey. Una cosa así.
Sí.
Teníamos que rentar salones porque ya no había casa que nos pudiera albergar ahí. Padrísimo, unas curas. No, y ese huicho es una botana, man. Papá de tu amigo.
Tenía un coche, El Camino. ¿Se acuerdan del Camino, no?
Claro.
Ahí lo tiene todavía. Precioso
el sueño
el
del
coche.
mojado, le decía yo que ese era el sueño del mojado, güey. Todo mojado que sí de Estados Unidos tenía que ser. Sí.
Nos lo prestaba muy poco
padre,
para dar la vuelta.
Sí, pues me imagino.
Oigan, empiezo a aceptar que hay varias
el-
gente esperando.
No, dale hasta las...
Oye, pero ya
a
está
las meras- a las
ya
meras-
está el mayor.
No, todavía no lo veo aquí.
Oye, ¿cómo le dicen? ¿Mayor Margo? ¿O cómo le dicen?
Sí, Mayor Margo.
Ok.
Dee, yo le digo Dee por su primer nombre.
Sí,
Eso.
pero digo, tú eres su cuate,
Tú
güey.
eres
yo no.
cuate, güey.
Hay 18.
Oye, Álvaro, mañana voy a grabar podcast con Beto O'Rourke. Al rato te hablo para...
Dale. ¿Cómo te ha ido con él, oye?
Pues vaya, no he hablado con él, todo ha sido con Cintia. Pero me la ha cambiado un par de veces, que ya estaba agendada y me la cambiaron, digo, todo con tiempo y todo. Pero mañana en teoría ya lo voy a grabar. Pues te echo una llamada ahí para que me des consejos de qué preguntas, ¿no?
Él me acaba de mandar un mensajito a su secretaria, a ver si ya se va a conectar. Ah, no lo veo. Ah,
Ojinaga.
hay 20 esperando.
No, pero estamos a tiempo, faltan 2 minutos, güey.
Sí,
Sí.
dale chance, todavía. No te estreses, mi querido primo.
¿Dónde estás? ¿En el rancho, primo, o qué?
Sí, ahorita me voy a Chihuahua.
¿Vas mañana con Maru o no?
Sí, claro. Traigo muchos fierros en la lumbre ahorita que tenemos que ir a platicar.
Ay, güey. No, no lo veo.
Tenemos 1 hora, ¿verdad, Álvaro?
Pues hora y media, hora 20, pero si se retrasa, pues no.
Y veo que generaste ya el grupo, Álvaro.
Sí.
Ok, perfecto. Ahí vamos turnando las preguntas. En esta ocasión sí vamos a dejar que las haga cada quien, me quiero imaginar, por ser Zoom.
Sí.
Excelente. Que las modere ahí Fernando, pues tú ves cediendo la palabra, Fernando.
Nada más aquí. A ver, nada más se las voy pasando a Álvaro, Enrique y tú, ¿no?
No, es que como
No.
Si quieres, sí, adelante.
Sí, igual es abierto, no sé, o igual le quieren hacer otro ajuste.
sí, que dejar
Que cada quien levante la mano ahí, tú vas teniendo un orden de quién va levantando la mano. Digo, damos unas cuantas preguntas, ¿verdad? Trata de hacerlas
Ahí
variaditas.
se conectó, ahí se está conectando.
Ok, muy bien.
Dee, how are you? Good morning.
Todavía se está.
Ya.
Let me unmute you. Here we go. How are you, Major?
Fine. How are you all?
Great, thank you. Thank you for coming in. We wanted to discuss probably briefly 1 minute before meeting everybody else. The dynamic, what we wanted to do is give a brief presentation of both desarrollos económicos from Chihuahua. And as you know, I wanted to introduce you to Enrique Perret, which he runs the U.S.-Mexico Foundation in Washington, D.C. He's been a great friend and ally of us. And I wanted to, he's invited his all these members as well. See? The deal is, I've heard a couple of talks you've given before about the tragic days. I know we've had, I know you've done this for YPO as well. And I wanted to kind of talk about the day that happened, just commemorating the anniversary of the tragic events of that day. And I talked as well, Enrique introduced me to Roberto Velasco the day that he came to the anniversary. So we talked briefly and decided to kind of open up this discussion for all the business community in Chihuahua.
Did Roberto tell you about my conversation with him?
No, no, we didn't discuss. What did he say?
Well, we just, in general, first of all, I was most appreciative of Mauricio Ibarra and the consulate putting the plaque out on behalf of all of the victims. I thought that was a great memorial for everyone to see. And we are appreciative. It's part of the, as you all have probably heard me since August 3rd talk about the fact that we are a binational region.
Yeah.
People outside of our region do not understand the proximity to Juarez and the fact that we are basically have been one community for 350 plus years.
Yes, sir.
Family on both sides, commerce on both sides, culture on both sides, and we had 9 victims coming from Juarez.
Yeah.
And people forget that. There was 1 German and 8 Mexican nationals, but they were all living in Juarez. And some of the family members I've met from Juarez, it's really, August 3rd is still pretty raw for me. But it was an attack on all of us, and I took it very personally. So, you know, that's kind of where we are on that. But, you know, I think we're progressing. It's hard to moralize an event like August 3rd when you're in the middle of a pandemic. And I said on national news last week, I think I did an interview with ABC Good Morning America when I said, you know, we're used to abrazos, and you can't do that here now. And that's part of our culture, given where we are.
Yeah.
So it was, I said, well, I think we're making the best we can of it we can do. I think the monument, the memorial at Walmart with the Candela is well done and respectful of the families. But we also are going to be heading into a trial, a murder trial. That's going to be about, at least a year or so. And that's going to open continual wounds based on what transpired. I'm on the record as saying I want the maximum punishment. I want him convicted, and I want the maximum punishment. Whether it be state or federal, there may be a delay because of the presidential election, whether they go under federal hate crimes or whether we go under state of Texas capital murder. So that's really kind of the gist of it. You want me to talk about my conversation with Roberto?
Yeah, if you don't mind, we're opening up the conference. We're meeting everybody right now, Dee, and
Okay.
and then let me give a brief welcome to everybody, and then
Okay.
we'll discuss whatever's after that. Okay. Let me just give me 1 second before let me admit everybody. Okay. Bueno, listo. Muy buen día a todos. Morning, everybody. I'm going to open up in English. I want to welcome everybody, all the members of Desarrollo Económico to our Monday conference. I'm honored to host today Major Dee Margo, which is a very close friend of mine and of a lot of people here in the community of El Paso and Juarez. I want to welcome friends and allies from Desarrollo Económico, Chihuahua, and everywhere else. Wanted to turn over the word to Enrique Perret and Miguel to give a welcome to some of their members. And then I'll read a brief about Dee Margo's curriculum, and then we'll open up the talk to give the word to him. Okay, so Enrique, you're next.
Thank you, Alvaro. And welcome, Mayor, to this conversation. I'm Enrique Perret. I'm the Executive Director for the U.S.-Mexico Foundation, and I also lead a group of Mexican business leaders called México en Movimiento. And on behalf of both institutions, I welcome you. Obviously, many challenges in front of us for the Hispanic community, for the Latino community nowadays during the pandemic. And obviously, as you were saying, a lot of lack of knowledge of what the community of El Paso and Ciudad Juarez represent for many, many years, right? So we want to listen on your perspective for this community, not only El Paso, but this big community, a border community between El Paso and Ciudad Juarez. So thank you for your time and welcome everybody.
Miguel.
Hello, Mayor Margo. It's great to see you again. My name is Miguel Guerrero. I'm the chairman of the board for Economic Development Organization in Chihuahua. Well, first of all, we want to thank you for your time and for dedicating this special time for our organizations. We admire and respect very much the hard work and dedication, but foremost, all the good initiatives for the good of our two regions, right? Like you said, we've been bonded for more than 300 years, and I think that there's still a lot more to come. Please know that even though 226 miles divide us from Chihuahua to El Paso, you have friends in Chihuahua City, and we're more than willing to work with you in everything that we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miguel.
Alvaro,
well,
back to you.
Really quick, I'm going to read Dee's bio before turning the word to him. Dee Margo, El Paso has been Dee Margo's home for 40 years, and in June 2017, he was elected as the 51st mayor of El Paso, Texas. He moved to El Paso, Texas in 1977 from Nashville, Tennessee, where he attended Vanderbilt University to join his father-in-law at John D. Williams Company in February 1981, 6 days after his 29th birthday. His father-in-law suffered a fatal heart attack, and he purchased JDW from the state and expanded the company from 6 employees to 70 in the span of 30 years. During these years, he served as a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, participated in the funding of Regional Economic Development Corporation, REDCO. Now the Borderplex Alliance, became the chairman of El Paso Chamber, and gave his time to several nonprofits, including Operational. He was elected to the Texas House of Representatives in 2010. In 2013, he was appointed president of the El Paso ISD Board of Managers, and most recently, he was appointed by the governor to serve on the Cancer Prevention and Research Institute of Texas Oversight Committee. He is also part of the Texas Municipal League of Executive Committees. Major Marco currently serves as vice chairman for the Border Security on the U.S. Conference of Majors Criminal and Social Justice Committee, as well as co-chair of the U.S. EMA COVID-19 Response and Health Equity Working Group. He is also proud of 3 grandchildren who are the 5th generation of El Pasans. Thank you, Major Dee Margo, and I turn it over to you.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you all. We are one region. I think the biggest challenge I've had as mayor, I've gone through what I call 3 crises. First was the immigration issue, which started in October of 2018, and then August 3rd, and now the pandemic. So some days I'm a little punchy, given what we've been going through. But what I learned when we were dealing with the biggest challenge we have as a region is the fact that we're unknown. We are really unknown outside when we're trying to attract industry. And my involvement with industry recruitment goes all the way back to the 90s, when the Chamber of Commerce in El Paso was the private sector recruiter, and I chaired that. So economic development is a critical component for our region. And I'm optimistic with what do you call it, not resourcing, but the coming back from China opportunities to Juarez and Chihuahua City and El Paso are going to continue. I wanted to go after the Amazon headquarters, not because I thought we had a chance to get it here, although I think, a long shot, possibly, given the fact that Bezos has a lot in the Blue Origin operation down in Sierra Blanca, and those are primarily staffed by UTEP graduates doing his rockets and issues, but that it would maybe improve our perception out there among site consultants and those who don't know about us, because we're not top of mind awareness. And to a certain extent, it worked. We've got them coming in, and I think we're working on some more large distribution centers right now with economic development in the city and Borderplex. But I think there's some real opportunities for our future. I'm concerned about the impact of the pandemic on our travel north and south. I told Roberto Velasco that I was not in favor of opening the borders to non-essential. I'm just concerned, and when I've talked to Mayor Cavada and others, I'm concerned about the COVID spread in Juarez and the testing. And they've told me on many occasions that they don't feel like they have enough testing availability. And until we can get that ramped up on the Mexican side, we're not going to be comfortable with north-south travel to non-essentials. We're just now kind of plateauing here on the COVID deal. We still have too high an incidence rate of deaths, but that's also because of our demographics. We're 84% Hispanic, Latino. That's one of the most susceptible demographics that we've got here for COVID. But we started the last couple of weeks to plateau. The governor's coming in on Thursday to visit with me and talk about what we need for the future. I'm still concerned about the flu season as it approaches this fall and what impact it's going to have on our medical care and facilities. But we're trying to maintain plenty of testing, et cetera. So I conveyed that to Roberto. And I also said, one of the things that we have as challenges, if you have issues needing, for instance, fire equipment from El Paso, from our fire department, hook and ladder, whatever, we cannot legally go and help Juarez fight a fire. They won't let us. We've given a couple of surplus equipment to the Juarez Fire Department, but I told him we need to work on something that will allow us to assist in a public health or a national or in a significant emergency where we have the resources, but we just can't get them over there to help you. And that's going to take some time. I still think immigration reform is critical. I've stated that for the last over 18 months. That's one reason the U.S. Conference of Mayors put me on an immigration task force. By way of background, and I don't know that you all know this, my family's originally from the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, from Rio Grande City. My great-grandmother came from Mexico, and my great-great-grandmother came from Mexico. And my grandfather did not even speak English till he was 18 and went to the University of Texas at Galveston Med School. So, I'm kind of deeply rooted, although I'm the only member of my family who's non-bilingual. That's because my dad was a vagabond and I never spent any time with the family. But anyway, why don't I stop there and answer any questions you all have?
Dee, can you talk a little about the date that the events happen? We were wondering if we can take the talk through there, the day of the tragic events, how it went and started development, all the crisis, and how you tended to be on top of the crisis, and then what followed after that.
Well, on August the 3rd, I was in Austin at a board meeting of an organization I was a member of their board of directors. And the meeting had ended Saturday about 11:30 Austin time, about 10:30 our time. And I started receiving E911 notices on my phone. It was about an active shooter, but the initial responses came back. It was at a Walmart, but no one was injured. And then it started progressing that there were people injured. And then it progressed to the point that there were maybe 3 shooters. It was just the fog of the moment, the fog of war, whatever you want to call it. So I'm there, and I was visiting one of my former staffers from when I served in the legislature. He'd had a newborn, and I was going to say hi to that, so I drove by his house. I was not due to fly back on Southwest until 6 p.m. that night. And when I started seeing all that was going on the national news and the live pictures of El Paso, I basically said, holy crap, I got to get home. He had access to a plane, so we immediately jumped in his car, and I headed towards the airport, the FBO, to catch a private plane back to El Paso. On the way to the airport, the governor calls me. He found out I was in El Paso, and he called and offered me a ride with him on the state plane. I told him I was already halfway to the airport. I would just meet him in El Paso. So I boarded the plane, and for an hour and a half, I had no knowledge. This plane did not have Wi-Fi. It was a jet, but it didn't have Wi-Fi. So I didn't know what was going on at all. And frankly, all I could do was kind of look out the window and pray. I landed about 1:30, and my police dignitary detail picked me up and took me immediately to the 9/11 Fusion Center, where I was briefed by the police department, by our fire department, by the FBI, by the Department of Justice, and I saw the supposed manifesto written by this murderer, this white supremacist, evil white supremacist, and it just sickened me. The calls went out at 10:39 from the Walmart. The police arrived at 10:45. There were two policemen who arrived, a 6-year veteran and a rookie 1 day off his probation. And without hesitation, they entered the Walmart, not knowing that the shooter had left. So they enter it and see all the carnage and what had happened. And they immediately, at 11:06, the shooter was apprehended by 2 motorcycle policemen and 2 DPS agents, Department of Public Safety, for the thing. And he just surrendered. His manifesto, his screed, his whatever you want to call it, said he was going to die and commit suicide. Well, he was a coward. He didn't do that. He surrendered immediately. He just got out of his car and held up his gun and was apprehended. So from that point forward, every day we just got updates. I went to the hospital. That evening, I went to MacArthur Elementary School, where we had a holding area for the families. And there was the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, the El Paso Independent School District had opened their cafeteria, but all the families were waiting there to be formally notified of their family members and whether or not they made it. On Sunday, the next day, I went to the hospital. Senator Cornyn had come in, and he wanted to go to the hospital, and I took him. And I'm in the hospital room of the 10-week-old baby whose parents perished protecting him. And while I'm there, they'd been notified formally about the mothers as a victim, but they had not yet been notified about the father. And I'm talking to the grandfather of the baby and the father of the husband, and it turns out we had his uncle used to work for me, and we're talking, and while I'm standing there, he gets the call to go to MacArthur School because his son has been identified. It was pretty raw and brutal at that time. So I left from there and I went to United Blood Services, and then I'll end with this to tell you. So I leave a hospital room with all the tragedy, and then I go to United Blood Service, and there's a line of El Pasoans waiting around the building in the hot August sun for as long as 11 hours to give blood. And if that doesn't show who we are or what we are, I don't know what does. And that's why I said all along, we're going to overcome this hate It will not define us. I've said from day one, this event will not define us. It will be part of our history, but it will be relegated to an asterisk footnote if I have anything to do with it. So that's kind of the long and the short of it, of what went on that day. We had continual briefings every day, the Department of Justice determining what they were going to do. And then Trump came out. That was a little tenuous. He just by way of background, he called me on that Monday afternoon. He got my cell somehow, and he called my personal cell. And he actually sounded very presidential. He wanted to know how I was and what was going on, and I gave him a day. I didn't know he was going to come out. He came out that following Wednesday. And the death threats to me started immediately. It was just unreal. I mean, he came out and visited. He wanted to visit all the first responders, and he did. And the room was packed with all of the first responders and those who had been there with his wife, Melania. And that was the extent of it. But I cannot tell you how much grief I received from friends and relatives, friends telling me not to allow him to come, to avoid. Well, gentlemen, the bottom line is he's the president of the United States and I'm the mayor of El Paso. And from my standpoint, I have an elected fiduciary responsibility to fulfill my role as mayor of all of El Paso. And that's why I met with him. But gee, it was, today, if anybody shows a picture of on the media with me with Trump, I get death threats. So that's just how bad it is here. But we're persevering. So anyway, Alvaro, that's really the kind of the best I can give you on a recollection and just taking time. I went to every funeral I could go to. I didn't make the ones in Juarez, but Dare and I went to every single visitation and funeral. And I'll tell you, I don't ever want to do that again. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Dee. I'm gonna open it up to questions. I know a couple of friends already are asking if we can hand them over the word to ask you a couple questions. Enrique, please.
Well, we can start with Emilio Cadena, chairman of the U.S.-Mexico Foundation.
Hi, Mayor. Devastating story. I mean, it's hard to go to any other topic after listening to you, honestly. But more of the reason why I want to ask this question, also I'm amazed by the fact that you say that we do not have the legal framework for the fire department of El Paso to help the fire department of Juarez. It's amazing to me. And this is the U.S.-Mexico Foundation. We just turned out a document called Convocation, where we had a meeting in Texas, in Roger Wallace's place in San Antonio, where we had 12 former ambassadors from the U.S. to Mexico and from Mexico to the U.S. And one of the recommendations that this document gives is precisely the binational institutional architecture. And we all agree that it has to start at the border. And I think there isn't any other better place that El Paso Juarez as the best community, the best, I'm going to say, integrated community, even despite these issues. And one of the things that we want to make sure is that we send out the message of the need of the border being, let me say, the starting point of rebuilding the relationship between the U.S. and Mexico on a more positive environment. And my question to you is, do you see an initiative where we have more mayors of the border cities meeting and combined with the governors of the border states? I think it was a good initiative that we have in the past, and right now it has been lost. So again, just the meeting and the proposal from the border to Washington and to Mexico City, because I agree with you, sometimes these two cities are so far away from what's actually happening at the border, then this is where policy is being made that is disconnected from reality. So that's my basic question. Establishing, again, majors from both countries and governors from both border states at both countries.
I agree with you 100%. The U.S. Conference of Mayors, I brought a number of the U.S. Conference of Mayors down here during the immigration issue back in May, I think, of last year. Most of them had never even been to El Paso. I took them up to the top of one of the bank buildings and pointed south, and I said, tell me where El Paso ends and Juarez begins. Not one. Now, let me tell you who some of the mayors were. Of course, some of them a little wild and woolly. De Blasio was there from New York. Garcetti was there from Los Angeles, whose grandfather came through El Paso when he came from Mexico. Okay. We had the mayors of, I think, Dayton, Ohio. I had, I mean, they were all over the Midwest. I can't remember all of them. I had 30 of them. And this was the first time most of them had ever even been to the border. So this is that unknown commodity I talk about, where we are. And then we followed it up with another meeting in Mexico. We called it the North American Mayoral Conference, I think it was, or we had a couple of mayors from Canada, and then a number from from Mexico, and we all met together. I have the U.S. Conference of Mayors kind of has me as their point person for immigration reform and changes there. So I'm trying to get the word out and educate as many people as I can who can come here and see where we are and what we're about. The mindset is that we're kind of like San Diego, and that's 15, 20 miles apart. They don't understand that we have, I explained to them that we've been here 100 years before the United States was ever founded. And the bulk of our population until 1848 was on the south side of the Rio Grande. And in 1848 is when Fort Bliss came. That's when we said some migration north of the Rio Grande. But so it's just an unknown. And we've got to continue to educate, inform. And so all of those meetings between mayors, between governors is absolutely critical. I did go down with a group from El Paso to Mexico City in the end of January. Rose there. He knows, he can fill you on that. That was the whole purpose of what we were trying to do, was to have a little more knowledge. I've agreed to do a sister cities arrangement with Mexico City, but again, with the pandemic, everything was put on hold. We've talked about putting a trade office from El Paso in Mexico City as well. Mauricio Ibarra is basically, he's correct, who said we're not taking advantage of it, and we need to do that. So we're going to do whatever we can to heighten the relationship and the awareness of who we are and where we are. And I think to a certain extent on a national level, when we start getting the Amazons and some of these others, that we are finally getting some recognition of what we have here. I mean, we're a region of, we're the largest binational, bicultural, bilingual region in the Western Hemisphere with almost 2.7 million people. And most do not have any idea about that. In fact, as I've heard of people in New York City interviewing people from El Paso for government positions, literally asking the questions, as ludicrous as this sounds, do you own a horse? I mean, it's ridiculous. So people don't realize that we're the 6th largest city in the state of Texas and the 20th largest city in the United States.
And you see the governors supporting this idea too?
I would hope so. And for the most part, I think you can. I have a pretty good working relationship with Governor Abbott, but also they get knee-jerked by Trump. And I have never agreed with the rhetoric coming out of the White House related to immigration. We need to do something about the DACA recipients. We need to do something about those that are there who've been working for many years. I've got a 6-point presentation I do that I've done at the U.S. Conference of Mayors on what I believe immigration reform should look like. But I don't know that we're going to get a whole lot accomplished until after this election and determining where we are. And quite candidly, I got to get reelected. So.
Thank you, Mayor. We have another question from Patty Hinich. I think she's driving, but Patty, can you you make the question?
Yes, I can, and it is such an honor and a pleasure to meet you, Major. Um, I'm a chef, a cookbook author, and a TV host of a TV series called Patty's Mexican Table that airs on PBS and Amazon Prime. And right now I'm working with PBS to come precisely to your area, to El Paso and Ciudad Juarez, and to shine a light on the beauty of the region. And I was wondering, I know people feel very, and one of the reasons that I want to go there is because one of my biggest audience and supportive communities come from El Paso, Ciudad Juarez. And I wanted to ask, and I know many people feel strongly about this, how do you feel about using gastronomy and culture as a way to bring attention to the region?
Patty, I think it's absolutely critical. My wife is a great ambassador for our region on both sides. She's been conducting tours of Juarez until the pandemic hit. She did her master's thesis on the mission in Juarez. There's no better advocate for our region than my wife Adair. And so we've been trying to do joint things. I was going to Juarez as often as I could for events there, and inviting that Mayor Cabot and I reinvigorated or renewed our sister cities proclamation, I think 2 years ago, which had been kind of dormant. And so we're trying to do whatever we can. That's what we try to sell is our region, not just El Paso, but our entire region and the wealth of culture and that we have here. As I say, we've got to get people here to see it because they don't understand it until they come. One quick story, Maria Bartiromo was coming out from Fox News to interview me last spring, a year ago. Like it was May or June, I can't remember. And she calls me on her cell phone from New Jersey or wherever she is from and asked me to describe El Paso. So I go through our region, demographics, climate, elevation, you know, whatever, mountains, whatever. Covered it all statistically. But I said to her, when you get here, you will find whatever I said you will not grasp until you come here. So when she interviewed me, I said, was I right? And she said, absolutely. So the critical component for us is we cannot describe who we are, where we are, or what we're about until we get people here. That's critical.
Thank you, Dee Margo. As you know,
Thank you so much.
we've been talking pretty close with Patty and some of the U.S. and Juarez foundations, and see if we can do this project together for next year. I think we're pretty close in closing it, and Patty's going to be here for a couple of weeks trying to film about the region. And I've told her a lot about your perspective that that you see us as a whole region and not two cities. So it's very interesting the project Patty's working on, and it's basically a big project that we want to bring down to El Paso, since she put on the map a lot of cities in Mexico through the gastronomic side of the deal. But it's going to be a very important project for El Paso. Enrique, if is anybody have another question? I invite you guys to raise your hand or just take the word. Anybody has another question for the mayor?
In general, in all the attendees, if anybody has a question, please let us know and we can pass the mic to you.
Dee, I wanted to ask you, based on some of the opportunities that are moving from California to Texas, how do you see those opportunities into El Paso region? I know Tesla announced their plant moving to Austin. How do you see some opportunities coming to El Paso on that side? Also, I know you recently talked about Amazon doing a distribution center here in El Paso. Is there a lot of projects on the pipeline that you're going after to try to integrate into the region?
We're working on another large distribution center that's that I thought was firmed up, but it looks like it's we got some challenges from a legal standpoint with some of their advisors, but it's going to be very large. The Amazon setup can be expanded, and related to Tesla. I mean, we're talking to some suppliers about relocating to our region with the manufacturing plant being in Austin. So, we're not in a position to do the full automotive manufacturing. I think we've done the reviews on that for years past, but component wise, yes, we're very capable of doing that. And I don't know what the new USMCA is going to do related to content and the long-term perspective on that. But yeah, we're working hard. We're working on hard on recruitment of California and Arizona, and to a certain extent, New Mexico, because of their changes in minimum wage. But New Mexico just picked up that hasn't been announced yet, a manufacturing firm that I started working on in 2017 after I became mayor, from Arizona. And I think they're going to locate in the Santa Teresa area, which is fine because the employee base will come from El Paso. But they're tied to the Maquilas, and that's one of the reasons they're there. So the pipeline is, bro, from your Borderplex involvement, our pipeline is very substantial right now on prospects and opportunities here. And I especially think we need to play up the coming back from China, coming over to here to Mexico and the United States.
Mayor, as you know, we have been working a lot in Juarez and also in Chihuahua on smart specialization strategies, which will lead us to focus on what are our specializations as a region, what we can really do, not what we hope to do, what we can really do and be strong at it. I believe that Alvaro has been making a great effort and great leadership in Juarez, and on the Chihuahua side, from the Economic Development Organization, we've been doing the same. And we can, I guess that this is the right time to sit all together and find these opportunities and help us promote each other's region in order to become more competitive and more productive, right? So I guess that we will be looking forward for a meeting, reunion, in which we can present the results of this strategy that we're working on, so we can all make a lot of efforts together in order to become more competitive as a region, like you said.
Miguel, one of the things I talk about that's an unknown, I talk about our human capital, the value of our human capital here. Remember, we talk about 2.7 million people, but we're an average age of 31 in our region. And I submit that we have more value based on our human capital potential than there is oil value in the Permian Basin. And I've said that on numerous occasions. And that's what we have to accelerate, is the human capital capacity and the growth. We got to continue to work on our education system, both secondary and graduate. We got to do whatever we can to continue to promote that on both sides. You've got over 1,000 Juarez students who attend UTEP. Again, with this pandemic and all of that, it's almost like we're in a lull factor for some time. I don't know what we're going to do on the schools here, but in any event, to me, our greatest resource is our human capital, and we need to continue to promote that.
I agree, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you. I see
Mayor,
Enrique, there's another question. Please go ahead, Enrique.
There is a question from Ismael Lopez, and it's a follow-up on human resources. What is your take on our educational districts, their capabilities for distant learning, e-learning, and the effect we will see in regards to COVID cases as they open to in-person teaching?
I think in the elementary ages, it's critical that we get the kids back into classrooms. When you look at parents having young children at home, I don't think there are very many mothers or fathers who can juggle a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old or whatever in their classroom learning and the back and forth. I know that's firsthand from my daughter-in-law, and we have My oldest granddaughter is getting ready to go to the 3rd grade, and my youngest is heading into the 1st grade. And she's not sure how she can handle it. And then you've got the parents who work. How are they going to handle it? It is not good. EPISD, which is the one I'm most familiar with, the El Paso Independent School District, believes that they've got some good distance learning, virtual learning capabilities. I do know in the older ages that they like that, especially those who may be working part-time, because they can catch up on their work better by virtual learning than they can in classrooms with restrictions on when they can work and not work. And they're helping to support their families. So it's, I think the verdict is still out. I can't, I've been given briefings, but I've not seen it tangibly, perform. In the spring, I'm told it worked fine for the limited time that it was done, but this is going to be something new, and we're going back and forth politically between when we can open or not open those schools. We delayed the school openings in El Paso initially till after Labor Day, and then the Attorney General in the state of Texas unfortunately said that the local health authority doesn't determine when schools open, that it's up to the school administration and trustees. And I'm not sure that's the most competent way to do it.
Thank you, Mayor. Another question is, during and after the pandemic, Mayor, we believe there will be a lot of mobility from human resources, big corporations, not wanting the people in the headquarters or in the offices anymore, or not requiring the people anymore in the offices. So there is a lot of mobility right now because COVID, people and families looking for a more quality of life, let's say, more open spaces. And there is an opportunity there for regions like El Paso, Ciudad Juárez to attract some people moving from big cities like New York or Miami or even Dallas or Houston or San Francisco. Expensive, with a lot of traffic and more risk nowadays. Is there any strategy there to bring more, let's say, active people in businesses that can bring more talent to the region?
I don't know of any specifics related to that perspective and thrust. Mostly it's been driven by the economics, opportunities in the businesses and the relocating and cost of living. Of course, cost of living is going to go across the board. And yes, we have a more you have a broader opportunity to do more in El Paso and Juarez than you do in Dallas or Houston or California for sure. And the tax situation is much better. But I don't know. Our Discover El Paso group goes after conventions and things like that, and that's your first chance to get people to come out and see you, is to do the conventions and those kinds of things and those meetings, which we haven't been able to do. So we're one of the things we've been doing is redeveloping our downtown. And for those of you that have been over here to see what we've been doing, it's remarkable differences, new hotels, and we're still trying to put a multi-purpose special event center in. We've had litigation, so we're once we get through the pandemic, which is restricting everything for everyone, then we can determine where we are. And as I said earlier, I think we're kind of plateauing right now. Our hospitalizations are down, our ICUs are down, and our ventilator usage is down.
I see Pita de la Vega raised her hand. She's got a question, Dee.
Okay, Pita.
Yes. Hi, Dee.
Hi, Pita.
Thank you so much for being with us. I think one of the problems we have that we have not been able to solve is how unfunctional our bridges are. You see, sometimes there are 2 lanes open and 15 officers around, and they may just make the lines longer and longer, and it's all commercial and it's passengers and time goes on and there's more technology and alternatives and everything. And I think our bridges are just not, they're not what they should be. That could be such a plus for our region if we have a plan to improve everything that has to do with logistics. I don't know if you have a plan or if we can, I don't know how, have a task force to do this, but time goes on and nothing changes. And I think that could be really the basic thing that we could work on.
Peter, we've been talking to Hector Mancha, the border sector chief, on the bridges since we started the immigration crisis. I've talked to him about one of my requests of the president when he was out here after August 3rd was give us full staffing on the bridges. Give us full staffing. You all may recall back in the 90s when Clinton was president, he had some political issues in San Isidro and San Diego. So he shifted a number of the Border Patrol personnel off our bridges to San Isidro back in, 95, 96. I don't remember when it was. But what they ended up doing, they've never replaced those. And what they did adjust, and they said our manning tables are now at this level. So I would ask, wait a minute, are we fully staffed? Well, we're staffed to that level. Well, that level is not enough. Never has been, or at least since the 90s. So one of my requests has been from day one with our elected leadership, the senators elsewhere, they understand what I'm talking about, is that they would fully staff our bridges so that all lanes are open during all times, especially during the peak hours. Remember, the city of El Paso spends between 1.4 and 1.6 million a year in supplemental public-private partnership payments to CBP to staff the bridges during peak hours so that they are fully staffed. We're ended up paying for what I think the federal government ought to be doing anyway. And even though we own the bridges, with the exception of the Bridge of the Americas, they ought to be, they're responsible for it. So we've been working on that. Again, everything got slowed down because of the pandemic. One of the other issues is with this that's also going to complicate things is when we do open the bridges because to non-essential and back and forth traffic. Right now, Customs and Border Protection have no health protocols. They don't have a system in place for how we'll validate, can you come over? Can you go south? Whatever. And that's one of the things I've been meeting with them about, and also with the commissioner of border. We've had several meetings on that, and I told Roberto Velasco that last week too, that I have some real concerns over, we get post-pandemic, we get where we are, what are we doing to verify? And frankly, the answer I got, which wasn't heartening, was that, well, if they collapse at my feet, we'll take care of them. It's ridiculous. They're not trained to do that. Now, that's not what they're trained to do for CBP on the bridges. I understand that. But something's got to give. We got to figure out what those protocols are going to be. And when we can figure that out, then we can increase it. But yes, I've been working on trying to get the bridges fully staffed. I made, as a matter of fact, that was a request I made of Trump when he was out here post August 3rd. I said, this is critical for us. I had heard, whether it's true or not, that some other mayors had told me that if you get his ear face to face, that he's more responsive. And so I tried. But again, everything kind of collapses when you get into the area where we are right now. But yes, you're absolutely correct. The bridges need to be fully staffed. They need to be open especially during the peak hours, fully staffed. We've talked to I talked to Hector Mancha. You remember during the immigration, one weekend, we shifted all the cargo down to the Zaragoza Bridge. And it seemed to go a lot faster. I was told we were dealing with anywhere from 4 to 11 hours in delays. And it seemed to be faster down there. Plus, remember, what I tell people is that's a life safety issue. When you look at Boda, which has resident neighborhoods all around it, if you got cars and trucks idling for hours, it's an environmental issue. So it's a health deal. So in any event, we're working the problem. I'm not so certain. We talked about adding more lanes to Zaragoza and making it potentially only cargo. I don't know. We're still studying it. There's some areas on that. David Coronado for the city is working heavily. We hired, I don't know if y'all are aware, we've got 2 or 3 economists studying the bridges for us for the city. And I don't know if Borderplex or you all have had that report that David Coronado's put together on our bridges and what it is. But yeah, I agree with you, Peter. It's an issue.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dee. We have another question from Sergio Mendoza.
Yeah, from Sergio Mendoza, Álvaro.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. I'm an entrepreneur here in the city of Chihuahua, and my question to you is, how does the city government of El Paso see Chihuahua City? Because we are still 200 miles south from you, and do you see us as part of the Borderplex, as some complement to your economic development strategy? I would like to just hear your take on that. Thank you.
Very much so. And I've taken a trip down to Chihuahua City right after I became mayor to reaffirm that. Very much so. We're a region. I mean, one of the things which is died because of the pandemic was we were working the Great Wolf Lodge here. And the way we sold the Great Wolf Lodge was inclusive of Chihuahua City, Juarez, and our entire region. We did a Jones Lang LaSalle study, which said we could attract from 6 hours away for the Great Wolf Lodge. Now, I think they've gone into bankruptcy or shut down or whatever, unfortunately, because of this pandemic. But we had that wired and set up, and we're ready to announce it when COVID came. But very much so do we include in our thought process, both at the city and at Borderplex, Chihuahua.
Thank you.
I think we're going to go with one last question, Dee. And I see Mario with his hand raised. Go ahead, Mario.
Hello, Dee. How are you? This is Mario Salomon.
Hi, Mario. Nice to see you again.
Very nice to see you again, too. It's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us all these comments. And after living in El Paso for a while, now I'm living in Dallas, by the way, I wanted to ask you, I know there's a lot of potential in the healthcare system for both El Paso and Juarez. Is there a strategy that you're developing on that?
Well, it's tied into, I now have the 4-year medical school at Texas Tech. We're having a dental school that's been approved by the legislature. We've got multiple nursing schools at UTEP and UTEP has the pharmacy school now. And we're looking at the hospitals expansions to the extent we can. We've talked about that. That's a real economic driver potential for us, especially with the research. I've been working hard at the Cancer Prevention and Research Institute of Texas, which those of you that are from Texas should know that CPRIT is a $3 billion research operation. It's been around. It's now another $3 billion. It'll be a total of $6 billion, and we are awarding $300 million a year in research grants for cancer. And I'm trying to expand that for right now. The bulk of those grants go to UT Southwestern all the way down the I-35 corridor, Baylor, MD Anderson, all of those schools. UT San Antonio's had Farrell, but I'm trying to get more of the research dollars available to institutions outside of that corridor for cancer research. And we're working very hard for Texas Tech, both in Lubbock and in here in El Paso and UTEP as well. So we're trying to couple it with the research, couple it with the expansion, but having the new dental school start, having the expansions with the med school. And remember, many don't understand, the Texas Tech Medical School in El Paso requires you to be a bilingual physician. If you do not speak Spanish before you come, they do total immersion. You graduate as a bilingual physician. That is their mandate. And I don't think many people fully understand that. That's why we did that. That medical school here on the border is designed to meet the needs of our border communities.
Excellent news. Thank you, and Lee, for your time, and very good to see you again.
Good to see you, Mario.
I think I see one more question. This is from Federico Talavera. Adelante, Federico.
Good morning, Mayor. Just a quick question. When you go out and to sell or look for investments and sell the region, besides human capital that you just mentioned, what do you say specifically about the strengths or advantages of Juarez?
Well, we talk about the maquilas. We talk about the capital investments already in manufacturing, who's been there, what their performance is. Others do a better job of articulating that than I do, but we usually travel in teams. And when I have Borderplex work with the Economic Development Division of the city, and that's one reason, I don't know if you all are aware, but we relocated the economic development side of the city of El Paso into the same office building as the Borderplex is, so that they can continually work together in presentations. And in fact, as I'll have a call this afternoon with Borderplex talking about the things we're doing. I have monthly updates on that, but we try to coordinate it as a team effort. Alvaro knows that. He's been involved in those presentations. So I rely on you all in Juarez to talk about Juarez, and we talk about this, and then I just try to do whatever the city needs to do to help encourage businesses to come here or to relocate in Juarez or expand, for that matter.
Thank you. Well, I think we already have a time constraint. I know we can keep going, Major. I want to thank you very much for hosting us, our business community, our business leadership. I know this event had a lot of traction with a lot of our members, and see how we work together in between Chihuahua, Juarez, El Paso. And with Enrique, you have a friend over there in Washington, D.C. He's a great promoter of our region and of the whole economy of some of the border states. I take into account Emilio's from Provenza. He's always been promoting that we should have the governors get together again and work on a similar strategy where we can identify the necessities of the regions between the borders. And I close with this, thanking you a lot for coming and talking to us, Major. And you have a friend here, and I'll turn it over to Enrique for some closing comments, and then Miguel can also close. Thank you very much, Dee.
You bet. Thank you.
No, just to thank you, Alvaro, Miguel, to co-host this event. Mayor, thank you for your time. A lot of things to do still during the pandemic and after the pandemic. And I just want to say that the U.S.-Mexico Foundation, based here in Washington, is is just working on this agenda, and happy to work with you and your administration to on this. Thank you again.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, just to thank everyone who attended the meeting. Thank you all. I see that Luis Corral is also here. He's from the Cuauhtemoc area, who has also been working with us very closely on finding these new opportunities, but foremost to give a better quality of life to our citizens. Mayor, as Alvaro said, you have friends here, and please rely on us, whatever we can help. I know that now more than ever, our role as private sector, it's extremely important, and we need to be in constant communication, and we need to come out with great initiatives in order to find these new investment opportunities, but also to become more innovative and more productive. Well, thank you, Mayor, and we will stay in touch. Thank you all who attended the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, with this, we'll close the conference. Thank you all, and have a great week.
Thank you, same to you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.